threat to green hydrogen. The Presidency and GIZ, commissioned by the German Federal Ministry of Economy, Cooperation and Development, BMZ, have agreed to collaborate on the topic of green hydrogen. This collaboration has led to a jointly implemented project which seeks to promote a development of a green hydrogen economy for South Africa known as H2.SA. 12.5 million euros have been allocated as funding support from BMZ. The project H2.SA aims to support the development of a favorable strategic and regulatory framework for a green hydrogen economy in South Africa, coordinates the important contributions of different government departments and stakeholders for such a framework, enable relevant actors to build a green hydrogen export economy, enhance capacity and knowledge of South African stakeholders in the green hydrogen and power fuel sector, and mitigate the potential implications of a green hydrogen power fuels economy on the environment, society, and the economy. Additionally, through coordination in the Presidency, SASOL, the Northern Cape Provincial Government and the Gauteng Provincial Government launched the following agreement at the SIDSSA 2001, which underpinned their green hydrogen ambitions. A memorandum of agreement between the Northern Cape Provincial Government and SASOL for SASOL to be the anchor developer of a planned Bogobai Green Hydrogen Special Economic Zone pending a detailed feasibility study. A heads of agreement between the Northern Cape Provincial Government and the Port of Rotterdam for Port of Rotterdam to act as a demand aggregator for green hydrogen into Europe. And a memorandum of agreement between the Gauteng Provincial Government and SASOL for SASOL to develop green hydrogen production facilities in Gauteng aimed at decarbonizing domestic industry.
Infrastructure South Africa will be hosting the inaugural South Africa Green Hydrogen Summit at the Century City Convention Center in Cape Town between the 28th to the 30th of November 2022. The summit showcases the country's offering as a large-scale, low-cost, world-class green hydrogen production hub and total value chain investment destination. South Africa is one of the founding members of the Africa Green Hydrogen Alliance, which seeks to promote continental green hydrogen cooperation. Senior delegations from the other founding members of the Africa Green Hydrogen Alliance will also be invited to showcase their unique offering at the summit. The inaugural summit aims to grow confidence in green hydrogen as a viable sector for strategic investment and government support in the country. The summit focuses on bringing together role players such as project sponsors, decision makers in government, financing institutions, international authorities, and academic institutions to enable knowledge sharing and, most importantly, enabling an environment conducive to forging long-term working relationships. Concentrating targeted green hydrogen engagement events aimed at popularizing the green hydrogen economy and its potential in South Africa, drawing lessons from other countries on their individual journeys as it relates to building an economy around green hydrogen and decarbonization, drawing interest in exports and domestic utilization underpinned by green hydrogen's potential to combine South Africa's mineral endowment with its renewable energy endowment to thrive, benefication and reindustrialization. The summit builds on the opportunities identified during the Sustainable Infrastructure Development Symposium South Africa of 2021. One of the highlights of the symposium was South Africa's emergence as a potential global exporter of green energy with major investment, support from SASOL and Anglo-American, giving boost to the country's green hydrogen projects. Green hydrogen was identified as a big frontier in the country's investment strategy, indicating that it represents both current and future growth and investment potential for South Africa. Due to outstanding potential of renewable energy sources and existing hydrogen production facilities, South Africa is regarded as one of the main future suppliers of green hydrogen products to the world. Building a hydrogen economy could open up promising new export market for South African companies as well as domestic use opportunities. leading to significant economic development, reindustrialization, reconfiguring underdeveloped rural provinces and job creation opportunities, ultimately enabling a transition in the South African energy sector towards a sustainable future.
Infrastructure South Africa is an infrastructure center of excellence and is established as a single point of entry for infrastructure planning, management, and delivery. Infrastructure South Africa is a catalyst for closing the infrastructure investment gap and meeting the infrastructure targets set out in the National Development Plan, and provides best practices in project preparation, leadership on infrastructure planning, technical and financial support for nationally prioritized infrastructure projects and programs.
We would like to take this opportunity to thank the sponsors. The Green Hydrogen Summit South Africa 2022 Cape Town was sponsored by Sasol, Anglo-American, Aqua Power, Industrial Development Corporation, the Northern Cape Province, Western Cape Government, and Wesgrow, in partnership with the Republic of South Africa, German Corporation, Infrastructure South Africa, and the Digital Council. Hydrogen is the most abundant element in the universe and holds the key to the world achieving the climate change commitments made at the 21st Conference of the Parties to the United Nations Framework Conventions on Climate Change in the form of the 2015 Paris Agreement. As a signatory to the Paris Agreement, South Africa has committed to a net zero carbon economy by 2050. Hydrogen will be a critical part of the country's transition to a low-carbon economy. Globally, the demand for green hydrogen and green hydrogen-based products such as ammonia and synthetic jet fuels is rising. This is off the back of national and corporate net zero commitments aimed at keeping global warming below 2 degrees or ideally 1.5 degrees above pre-industrial levels. These commitments require the decarbonization of hard-to-abate sectors such as heavy-duty transport and industries such as cement, steel, ammonia, and plastic manufacturing. Green hydrogen, which is an emissions-free form of hydrogen made by using renewable energy to split water through electrolysis, is a front-runner in the race to decarbonize traditionally hard-to-abate sectors. South Africa has a long history of exploration in green hydrogen. Since 2007, the Department of Science and Innovation has been researching hydrogen and the focus on green mobility and the use of platinum group metals. The DSI is currently working on a hydrogen society roadmap that will be released soon and will be the precursor to a national green hydrogen strategy. The Department of Trade, Industry, Competition is developing a hydrogen commercialization strategy, and the Northern Cape and Gauteng provinces are developing provincial green hydrogen strategies focused on exports and domestic carbonization, respectively. South Africa has a number of strategic advantages which make the country a potentially globally competitive and green hydrogen production area. These advantages include a world-class endowment of both onshore wind and solar irradiation. South Africa also has a supportive legislative environment and experience in the deployment of renewable energy with the largest installed capacity of wind solar power projects on the African continent. The deep expertise by Sasol and PetroSA of the Fischer-Tropsch processes used to produce synthetic fuels like diesel, petrol, and kerosene, as well as a range of chemical products. South Africa already produces 2.4 million tons of hydrogen for domestic consumption and the largest concentration of known platinum group metals reserves. 90% of known reserves are in South Africa and Zimbabwe. The multi-sectoral implications of green hydrogen have placed the presidency of the Republic of South Africa at the center of convening and coordinating the whole of government with respect to green hydrogen. The presidency and GIZ, commissioned by the German Federal Ministry of Economic Cooperation and Development, BMZ, have agreed to collaborate on the topic of green hydrogen. This collaboration has led to a jointly implemented project which seeks to promote a development of a green hydrogen economy for South Africa known as H2.SA. 12.5 million euros have been allocated as funding support from BMZ. The project H2.SA aims to support the development of a favorable strategic and regulatory framework for a green hydrogen economy in South Africa, coordinates the important contributions of different government departments and stakeholders for such a framework, enable relevant actors to build a green hydrogen export economy, enhance capacity and knowledge of South African stakeholders in the green hydrogen and power fuel sector, and mitigate the potential implications of a green hydrogen power fuels economy on the environment, society, and the economy. Additionally, through coordination in the Presidency, SAGHS, the Northern Cape Provincial Government and the Gauteng Provincial Government launched the following agreement at the SIDSSA 2001, which underpinned their green hydrogen ambitions. A memorandum of agreement between the Northern Cape Provincial Government and SAGHS for SAGHS to be the anchor developer of a planned Bogobai Green Hydrogen Special Economic Zone pending a detailed feasibility study. A heads of agreement between the Northern Cape Provincial Government and the Port of Rotterdam for Port of Rotterdam to act as a demand aggregator for green hydrogen into Europe. And a memorandum of agreement between the Gauteng Provincial Government and SAGHS for SAGHS to develop green hydrogen production facilities in Gauteng aimed at decarbonizing domestic industry.
Infrastructure South Africa will be hosting the inaugural South Africa Green Hydrogen Summit at the Century City Convention Center in Cape Town between the 28th to the 30th of November 2022. The summit showcases the country's offering as a large-scale, low-cost, world-class green hydrogen production hub and total value chain investment destination. South Africa is one of the founding members of the Africa Green Hydrogen Alliance, which seeks to promote continental green hydrogen cooperation. Senior delegations from the other founding members of the Africa Green Hydrogen Alliance will also be invited to showcase their unique offering at the summit. The inaugural summit aims to grow confidence in green hydrogen as a viable sector for strategic investment and government support in the country. The summit focuses on bringing together role players such as project sponsors, decision makers in government, financing institutions, international authorities, and academic institutions to enable knowledge sharing and, most importantly, enabling an environment conducive to forging long-term working relationships.
The universe and holds the key to the world achieving the climate change commitments made at the 21st Conference of the Parties to the United Nations Framework Conventions on Climate Change in the form of the 2015 Paris Agreement. As a signatory to the Paris Agreement, South Africa has committed to a net zero carbon economy by 2050. Hydrogen will be a critical part of the country's transition to a low carbon economy. Globally, the demand for green hydrogen and green hydrogen-based products such as ammonia and synthetic jet fuels is rising. This is off the back of national and corporate net zero commitments aimed at keeping global warming below 2 degrees or ideally 1.5 degrees above pre-industrial levels. These commitments require the decarbonization of hard-to-abate sectors such as heavy-duty transport and industries such as cement, steel, ammonia, and plastic manufacturing. Green hydrogen, which is an emissions-free form of hydrogen made by using renewable energy to split water through electrolysis, is a front-runner in the race to decarbonize traditionally hard-to-abate sectors. South Africa has a long history of exploration in green hydrogen. Since 2007, the Department of Science and Innovation has been researching hydrogen and the focus on green mobility and the use of platinum group metals. The DSI is currently working on a hydrogen society roadmap that will be released soon and will be the precursor to a national green hydrogen strategy. The Department of Trade, Industry, Competition is developing a hydrogen commercialization strategy, and the Northern Cape and Gauteng provinces are developing provincial green hydrogen strategies focused on exports and domestic carbonization, respectively. South Africa has a number of strategic advantages which make the country a potentially globally competitive and green hydrogen production area. These advantages include a world-class endowment of both onshore wind and solar irradiation. South Africa also has a supportive legislative environment and experience in the deployment of renewable energy with the largest installed capacity of wind solar power projects on the African continent. The deep expertise by Sasol and PetroSA of the Fischer-Tropsch processes used to produce synthetic fuels like diesel, petrol, and kerosene, as well as a range of chemical products. South Africa already produces 2.4 million tons of hydrogen for domestic consumption and the largest concentration of known platinum group metals reserves. 90% of known reserves are in South Africa and Zimbabwe. The multi-sectoral implications of green hydrogen have placed the presidency of the Republic of South Africa at the center of convening and coordinating the whole of government with respect to green hydrogen. The presidency and GIZ, commissioned by the German Federal Ministry of Economic Cooperation and Development, BMZ, have agreed to collaborate on the topic of green hydrogen. This collaboration has led to a jointly implemented project which seeks to promote a development of a green hydrogen economy for South Africa known as H2.SA. 12.5 million euros have been allocated as funding support from BMZ. The project H2.SA aims to support the development of a favorable strategic and regulatory framework for a green hydrogen economy in South Africa, coordinates the important contributions of different government departments and stakeholders for such a framework, enable relevant actors to build a green hydrogen export economy, enhance capacity and knowledge of South African stakeholders in the green hydrogen and power fuel sector, and mitigate the potential implications of a green hydrogen power fuels economy on the environment, society, and the economy. Additionally, through coordination in the presidency, Sasol, the Northern Cape Provincial Government and the Gauteng Provincial Government launched the following agreement at the SIDSSA 2001, which underpinned their green hydrogen ambitions. a memorandum of agreement between the Northern Cape Provincial Government and SASL for SASL to be the anchor developer of a planned Bogobai Green Hydrogen Special Economic Zone.
Thank you. You may be seated. Thank you very much and good morning. Good morning, Mr. President. Good morning, Madam. Good morning, sir. All protocols observed. My name is Vicky Sampson, and I'm performing with the wonderful SA Youth Choir for you this morning. Thank you. Thank you so much. Before we leave you, I'd like to wish you a most prosperous and awesome conference. For the road that lies ahead. We are positive. We are a positive nation. We believe in tomorrow. We believe in the African dream. I've got a new song for you, which we're going to perform now. And this is the song of the future. God bless you all and enjoy.
Thank you very much, Vicky Sampson and the South African Youth Choir. His Excellency, the President of the Republic, Cyril Ramaphosa, Minister in the Presidency, Mondli Gungubele, Minister of Public Works and Infrastructure, Patricia de Lille, Minister of Trade, Industry and Competition, Ibrahim Patel, Minister of Forestry, Fisheries, the Environment, Barbara Creasy, Minister of Public Enterprises, Pravin Gordhan, Deputy Minister in the Presidency, Pinky Kekana, Deputy Minister of Forestry, Fisheries and the Environment, Makhotso Sokyu, Deputy Minister of Public Works and Infrastructure, Nkolo Kivit, Premier of the Western Cape, Alan Winde, Premier of the Northern Cape, Dr. Zamani Saul, local and international investors, members of the business community, MECs, members of the media, ladies, gentlemen, gender non-conforming people, a very good morning and welcome to the Green Hydrogen Summit made possible by Infrastructure South Africa. My name is Nzinga Kunta and it's my great pleasure to be a program director today as we discuss the future of hydrogen in South Africa. The green hydrogen economy presents significant new opportunities for South Africa, which include export opportunities that will drive economic growth and decarbonization. The South African government sees the development of green hydrogen economy in South Africa as a key element of the just transition, which is significant as the conference comes just after COP27, where green hydrogen was one of 3 priority sectors identified by South Africa in the Just Energy Transition Investment Plan that was unveiled by President Cyril Ramaphosa. Over the course of this conference, we will hear about the opportunities in the sector, growth, and really connect into a sector that government has been working on since at least 2007. As we begin our program, please may I ask that you place your phones on silent. The hashtags for those of us online is GreenH2SA. Please can I ask that you download the app in order to see where the sessions are a little bit later on, as there are many. You can scan at the welcome desk. You also have that information in your delegate pack. You're also invited to the networking session on the square at the end of the day. Let's begin then. Please may I ask Premier Winde to make his way to the stage to open the conference and welcome us.
Thank you very much, Program Director. Molweni, wamkilekile, goeiedag, baie welkom, good morning, and a very, very warm welcome to all of you to this, I want to say, very, very exciting conference, looking at green hydrogen, but also looking at a green transition and the role that we can play here in Southern Africa for the world. It is really an honor and a privilege to be able to welcome you here. I, after yesterday, feel that as the welcoming Premier of the province hosting, I feel that almost Premier Zamani Saul should be standing next to me because, quite frankly, Mr. President, what has happened in the last while is, for me, a really amazing partnership between 2 provinces that are taking this challenge, global challenge, and our own challenge so very, very seriously. But before I get to that, Mr. President, ministers, now, Program Director, you read out the full list, and that's why in our country we say all protocol observed. But I want to go a little bit further and say, of course, we welcomed all of the South African ministers, but we have African ministers here, we have delegates from around the world, delegations from around the world, we have investors, and we have people that are really, really interested in making sure that you can partner with us and that we can all play our part in making sure that we get to a proper transition of energy, that we focus on a big crisis that our world is facing around lowering our carbon footprint, about making sure that we reach those targets that we've all set for 2030 and for 2050. And I think this conference comes perfectly at the right time following COP. I want to say that, Mr. President, I mentioned to you the work that has been done yesterday, and not all of you were able to be there, but we got an opportunity to go out to the free port of Saldanha, Some of the delegations joined us. But what also happened, and I mentioned this new partnership between two provinces, and what we are looking at when it comes to a green hydrogen corridor and the role that we can play in South Africa and the role that we can play in Africa is really, really important. So yesterday we signed an MOU between two provinces, between two premiers. And that's why I said perhaps Premier Zamani-Saul should be standing next to me, because when I welcome you to this province, I actually welcome you to the two Cape provinces, the Northern Cape and the Western Cape. These two provinces already have already have green hydrogen strategies, Northern Cape and Western Cape, agreed to by the respective cabinets and provincial governments. And delegates, we are really very, very serious that we want to play our part alongside and with the African Green Hydrogen Alliance. There is a massive market, $130 trillion, if we are on this planet to reach our targets that we've set by 2050. And Africa is serious about playing our part. One thing that we have, when you look at the heat map, the solar heat map, the Northern Cape stands out like no other. We can already feel it with the investment that has taken place in green energy in the Northern Cape, in the Western Cape, and in South Africa. And so when we talk about this partnership, when we talk about the strategy, when we link the Northern Cape, the Western Cape, the free port of Saldanha, some of you are going to fly to the Northern Cape tomorrow to go and have a look at a new port that is to be developed. When you take those into account and then you link it to our neighboring country, Mozambique, when you link it to our neighboring country, Namibia, we'll get to Mozambique and the role that Mozambique will play. Namibia, you can really start to feel this corridor developing. Now, Mr. President, ministers, delegates, investors, I want to say, and I said it yesterday and I'm going to say it again, that the one thing we need to make sure that we grasp is one of urgency. And there, I would like to not only welcome the politicians and the investors, I want to say to the government officials who have worked day and night to get these documents in place, who've worked between our provinces, the Director Generals, the economic development departments, and then specifically, Professor Ramagopa, you, Mr. Mashweshwe, and your team. Thank you very much for really showing that urgency. We have to grasp this urgency, and we have to grasp it because we need to make sure we're playing our part in that target of 2050. But in South Africa, we have to grasp it with urgency for another reason. And that reason is that we ourselves need to make sure that we see our own energy transition happening with more and more urgency. I must say that the delegations that I met last night and yesterday, I think about the German delegation, I think about the Dutch delegation. I see what is happening in the Northern Hemisphere, looking at their own energy shortfalls as we move forward. And I must say, I am green with envy. If I look at, green is a good color. If I look at how quickly you mitigated risks with LNG. Now, of course, we're talking about green hydrogen and a green future. But we're also talking about a transition in South Africa from coal to renewables, wind, solar, green hydrogen. But on that way, we were at a plant yesterday in Saldanha Bay. I see the mayor here, there's the mayor from Saldanha Bay. Thank you for being here, sir. There's a partnership signed with Sasol, with ArcelorMittal, and we have an energy plant at the free port of Saldanha that is standing idle. It has been mothballed because our energy was too expensive to remain competitive. But with this new market, suddenly green hydrogen, a partnership between Sasol, ArcelorMittal, and suddenly the free port of Saldanha and South Africa becomes a player in the green steel environment. And so you can walk through factories that are mothballed and quiet, but you can feel the energy of what we are building here today, yesterday, and tomorrow, and what we're going to be creating. And in Vicky Sampson's words, that African dream. You could feel it. You could feel it in their words this morning as they were singing our anthem and singing what an African dream can be like. Obviously, we've got other work to do. We've got to make sure that the skills pipeline is aligned to green hydrogen and this new market. And between our two provinces and our country, we're going to make sure that we are skilling up our people to take advantage of your investments that are going to come to this region. We're going to have to make sure that we are cutting red tape, that we are making it easy to do business, and that we are making sure that if we are to reach those targets, that business can be done here in Southern Africa. We must make sure that part of the just energy transition, that the investment that is being made from global countries who are part of making sure that Africa is going to play its rightful role, that we get our grid systems invested into. If our grid systems are not able to carry those solar and wind energy plants to our green hydrogen systems, to our own energy grid and our own green future, then we're not going to make it. So we've got to make sure we get the project pipelines into energy production, green, into the grid systems, and into those skill systems that are going to make us that competitive region here in the southern tip of Africa, this corridor, and Africa as a whole. We've got to make sure that this is like a project, like we ran COVID-19, like a project. We make sure that we've got deadlines and outcomes, and we will treat it very, very seriously. My job is only to welcome you. I see in the program there is really unbelievable workshops and sessions that have been set up so that we can all engage from all corners of the world here gathered in the southern tip of Africa, that we can engage and make sure that we are all playing our part in this energy transition with a special focus on this massive opportunity called green hydrogen. They estimate by 2050 that 22% of the world's energy needs will be met through green hydrogen. That is a massive opportunity. We I normally say the Western Cape, but I'm going to say in the Northern and Western Cape, in the southern tip of Africa, in South Africa and Sub-Saharan Africa, are ready for business. We are ready to play our part. We want to play our part in making sure that we are protecting our planet for our children and those to come. This African dream will become a reality. Welcome, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Premier. Please may I ask the Minister of Public Works, Patricia de Lille, to make her way to the stage to give us some context and background.
Good morning, goeiemorgen, molweni, assalamu alaikum. Your Excellency, President Cyril Ramaphosa, Minister in the Presidency, Minister Gugumbele, is now officially part of the infrastructure team. Thank you for your leadership also to the ministers, deputy ministers, our two premiers, mayors, representatives from government, our international guests and representatives, industry leaders. It is my great pleasure this morning to welcome you to our inaugural conference of the new frontier of energy in South Africa, the Green Hydrogen Summit. As the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure, together with ISA, we've been hard at work on the new infrastructure mandate given to the department by the President in 2019 to expedite infrastructure delivery and address the fragmentation of infrastructure. We have also worked with teams of experts in infrastructure South Africa together with the private sector. And I want to thank the private sector for the role that they have played to advance our work in new areas in the infrastructure green space. Thank you very much. As Minister Gugumbele mentioned yesterday, South Africa's got a long history of researching and innovating in the space of infrastructure, going way back to 2007. So as South Africa, we've got a number of inherent advantages that could enable South Africa to be a major player in the anticipated green hydrogen economy. However, more needs to be done to market our ambitions and our appetite to be a world-class green hydrogen production hub to the rest of the world and also to our competitors. As such, we must secure the degree of offtake and investments required to enable South Africa's green hydrogen potential. Now, Infrastructure South Africa has amassed a pipeline of green hydrogen projects with a value of over 300 billion rand. But much of this pipeline still needs to be, needs further project preparation before they can reach financial closure. And I want to, Your Excellency, Mr. President, thank Professor Ramaggopa and his team for leading us and putting in all of this hard work. Thank you, Prof. Just to give you one example of one of the projects that will be the first to come online in South Africa, it is the Prieska Power Reserve project in the Northern Cape under the leadership of Premier Sol. It's a catalytic project that will begin producing green hydrogen and green ammonia in 2026 by combining high-yielding renewable solar and wind energy. And this will be done in a combination with natural resources of water and air located outside of Prieska in the Northern Cape. So the Prieska Reserve project will also create a number of jobs during the construction phase and permanent jobs thereafter. In the first phase of the project, it is anticipated that more than 10,500 jobs will be created over both the construction and the operation phase. It further aims to promote the full and effective participation of women throughout its development, construction, and operational phases. The project aims also to achieve this from an ownership point of view through the operational structure and the beneficiaries. This inaugural South African Green Hydrogen Summit will showcase our country's offering as a large-scale, low-cost, world-class green hydrogen production hub, and a total value chain investment destination. We will also profile the projects, the products of both domestic and international firms under the name Promoting South Africa as a Green Hydrogen Investment Destination of Choice. And this will enable our pipeline of projects to succeed against fierce international competition and also to secure a more strategic advantage. Now, part of the process, we will be gazetting a number of projects in line with the Infrastructure Development Act of 2014. And I will briefly explain the advantages of gazetting these projects. We're very confident that the additional projects that we have prioritized as strategic infrastructure projects will address the challenges experienced in the infrastructure environment. So, the next round of projects that will be gazetted in line with the Infrastructure Act of 2014, which enables the projects to follow an expedited path to delivery with stipulated and shorter time frames for all the necessary approvals. Infrastructure projects that are of economic significance like these ones and social importance are fast-tracked when they are gazetted as strategic infrastructure projects. And this is in line with Schedule 2 of the Infrastructure Act. So when we invoke Schedule 2 of the Act, there are prescribed shorter time frames for processes relating to the implementation of the strategic integrated projects. This means that all processes relating to the implementation of the projects, including processes related to any application for approval, authorizations, licensing, permission for exemption, and process relating to any consultation and participation will now run concurrently and not consequential. And that is the, and not sequential, I'm sorry. So that is the difference. And Schedule 2 spells out the shorter time frames and how it's relevant, the periods of public consultation, and also how to assess development and mitigation plan, and to also help with the regulatory decisions. So, the SIP coordinators, because we have coordinators for every one of these strategic infrastructure projects, they've been identified, and together with the private sector, they will be expediting the implementation of these infrastructure projects, which will be gazetted as SIPs. Let me come to the additional projects that will be gazetted, but also to inform you that they have already gone through an extensive quality assurance check using our own sustainable infrastructure development system. It's a methodology that we have adopted, where we have adopted the British UK Authority 5-case model. And the value of the projects, like I said, at this stage we are still calculating. So all these proposed projects are also aligned to the National Development Plan. It is aligned to the National Infrastructure Plan. it is aligned to the Economic Reconstruction and Recovery Plan as was announced by the President in 2020. So let me get to the existing projects under the Green Hydrogen National Program. And there are so far 19 projects that fall under this program. A total of 9 projects included in the program have been successfully registered with Infrastructure South Africa and are either in an early business case or intermediary business case as per the 5-case model. Projects registered with ISA will also receive their strategic infrastructure project letters immediately after the Gazette is published. And it will include the Priska Power Reserve in the Northern Cape, the Ubuntu Green Energy Hydrogen Project, also in the Northern Cape, the Buchabai Project, Green Hydrogen Development in the Northern Cape, the Atlantia Green Hydrogen in the Western Cape, the Upilanga Solar and Green Hydrogen Park, again in the Northern Cape, the Sasolburg Green Hydrogen 60 megawatt in the Free State, and the Sasol High Shift in Secunda in Mpumalanga, and then the Hive Ammonia in the Eastern Cape. So they are all over the country. And also the Hydrogen Valley of Anglo-American and their JV partners that also include projects along Limpopo, Gauteng, and the KwaZulu-Natal corridor. Projects that we are waiting on for final project information has been registered with ISA. It is the mainstream renewable energy hydrogen in the Western Cape, AMSA Saldanha Steel Hydrogen Project in the Western Cape, Enetrag Posmasburg Project in the Northern Cape, HDF Energy Renewable IPM1 and Mpumalanga, and then also the Enetrag Indigen Project, the e-methanol in the Eastern Cape, the Isondo Fuel Cells, MEAs, manufacturing in Gauteng, Isondo NCP vehicles in Gauteng, Saldanha Bay Green Hydrogen Project, the Project Phoenix fuel cell manufacturing in the Free State, and then the Cape Stack in the Western Cape. So additional projects that we will also gazette also include a number of projects of the Just Energy Transition, the Oil and Gas National Program, the Embedded Generation National Program. Those are some of the other projects that will be gazetted. So these projects in the Gazette will be coming up in line with in the next few days. And then these projects are programs as adopted by the Presidential Infrastructure Coordinating Council. And this work has been done in line with our firm belief that infrastructure-led economic growth is the most effective and significant way as part of our economic growth strategy to grow our economy, while at the same time we respond to the socioeconomic needs of our people. Our goal is to build on this vision and to build our economy through quality infrastructure programs and projects. So, President, ladies and gentlemen, the potential for green energy to become a thriving sector in South Africa's economy is huge. And so we're using the summit as a springboard into action to make the potential a reality, to see the green hydrogen industry thriving in our country. As government, we will work together with the green hydrogen sector to create an enabling environment conducive for the private sector to create jobs. We are committed to that so that we bring those much needed jobs to our people. Well, I thank you all and I wish you all a successful conference. We are very happy that you took the time and the enthusiasm. And again, you know, our great thank you to my professor. Professor Ramagopa, thank you so much and God bless all of you. Thank you, Mr. President. Yes. Okay. Thank you. Just being delegated another task. I have to welcome His Excellency Honorable President Cyril Ramaphosa. He needs certainly no introduction. Mr. President, over to you.
Thank you. Let's be seated, please. Program Director, Minister of Public Works, Minister Patricia de Lille, ministers from both South Africa and a number of countries on our continent, as well as deputy ministers who are also in our presence here. And of course, the Premier of the Western Cape and the Premier of the Northern Cape. Premier Zamani Saul, you do not know that there's already not a memorandum of agreement, but an agreement reached, that because the two of you have not only signed some agreements, but you're working so well together and you even demonstrated it by hugging each other in public. The agreement is we're going to do away with the borders between the two provinces. And when the question was posed, what then happens to the premiership? Premier Winder said, well, we'll do a premier sharing process. 6 months, 6 months. So I've been given the task to choose who goes first. So be nice to me, both of you. Mr. Till Mansman, the Innovation Commissioner for Green Energy of the Federal Ministry of Education and Research of Germany, who is here with us, an Executive Mayor of Cape Town, where I pay my rates and taxes, lots of them, ambassadors and high commissioners and distinguished guests, and ladies and gentlemen. It does indeed give me great pleasure to welcome you all to this inaugural South Africa Green Hydrogen Summit. It should actually be dubbed the African Continental Green Energy Summit, given that we've got a number of ministers from various countries on our continent, and also given the fact that there's already an alliance that has been put together of a number of countries on our continent countries that are going to participate in this green energy revolution. This summit builds on a foundation that was laid by the Sustainable Infrastructure Development Symposium, which was held in 2021, which highlighted in many ways our country's potential as a global exporter of green energy. But this summit is also taking place soon after the conclusion of COP27, which was held at Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt. These gatherings that bring together so many leaders are becoming ever more important, and may I say also urgent, given the devastation that has been caused by the increasing frequency and intensity of extreme weather occurrences. Low and medium income countries are most affected by these weather events, but are least equipped to adapt and to deal with the climate change, with the effects rather of climate change. And they are the least causes of this climate change that we are going through. They contribute the least, and yet they suffer the most. We therefore welcome the commitment at COP27, a commitment which was made to establish a fund to address climate damage suffered by developing economies. This was an important agreement and development because your developing economy countries argued, and very strongly so, that they bear the brunt and the damage of climate change, and yet they have contributed the least. So the establishment of a fund, in my view, is an important milestone and needs to be applauded. Applauded only if those countries that are meant to contribute are going to meet their commitments. And we do hope that this time they will meet their commitments. South Africa used the platform at COP27 to fully outline and elaborate on our own country's just green transition. We released our plan, and we released the plan for public comment, which we dubbed the Just Energy Transition Investment Plan, as the basis of our pathway towards a low carbon and climate resilient society. I must say that the plan has been well received by many across our country and also across the world. According to the plan, South Africa will need approximately $98 billion over the next 5 years to enable a just transition and achieve our ambitious emissions reduction targets. If you work it out at, say, which is not the case at the moment, at 15 rand a dollar, you're talking about 1.4 trillion rand. Green hydrogen is identified in the investment plan as one of the big four frontiers. Frontiers because that is where we want to go, of a just energy transition, indicating that it has huge growth and investment potential. But on the back of that, it has enormous job creation potential as well, and an overriding improvement of the economic lives of our people. Globally, the demand for green hydrogen and green hydrogen-based products, such as ammonia and the synthetic jet fuels, is rising significantly around the world. This presents a very unique opportunity for South Africa, and may I add for our continent as well, to link its mineral endowment with its renewable energy endowment to drive industrialization. And as we often say, this is Africa's century. And indeed, these wonderful opportunities are opening up not only for South Africa, for Namibia, and for a number of other countries on our continent. At the same time, this will create jobs, attract investment, bring development to rural provinces and a number of other countries on our continent, and support a just transition from fossil fuels. This summit is therefore an opportunity to tell the South African story in this rapidly growing sector. South Africa is not new to the green hydrogen conversation. The Department of Science and Innovation has been leading research as well as innovation in green hydrogen in South Africa since 2007, as we heard earlier, through Hydrogen South Africa. This was motivated in part by the potential impact that the transition away from the internal combustion engine to battery electric vehicles would have on the country's platinum mining industry. Together, South Africa and Zimbabwe hold over 90% of the world's known platinum group metal reserves. Since 30 to 40% of the supply goes into the production of catalytic converters for internal combustion vehicles, the initial focus of the research was on hydrogen-powered fuel cell electric vehicles as an alternative market to the internal combustion engine vehicle. South Africa has existing and future potential to produce green hydrogen. It is estimated that South Africa has the potential to produce 6 to 13 million tons of green hydrogen, as well as derivatives, a year by 2050. To do so would require between 140 to 300 gigawatts of renewable energy. The focus would be on green hydrogen exports, electrolyzers and fuel cell production, and the manufacture of green steel, sustainable aviation fuel, ammonia, fertilizers, and renewable energy components. So you're looking at a number of products that can flow out of this new sector. South Africa is, in this regard and many other regards, is an investment destination. Some say of choice, but I say it is a must destination for investment. That's where it is. Now, the country has proven itself as a gateway to a dynamic continent with great prospects. And this term gateway, we haven't just plucked it out of the air. It is often used by many people around the world who say that they see South Africa as the gateway. Yes, the gateway into our continent. Africa is growing its output. It is rapidly urbanizing and has a young population. South Africa leads the continent in advanced manufacturing and science and technology. As we are the most industrialized country on our continent, but we use it to good effect to also bolster the prospects of a number of countries on our continent. This country is a favorable, reliable, and stable place to conduct business. We are driving regulatory and legislative reform to make the South African economy more competitive, to attract more investment so that we can create more jobs. Our country has many inherent advantages that make it internationally competitive in the production of green hydrogen. These include a world-class endowment of both onshore wind and solar irradiation. You already heard that the Northern Cape, which is merging with the Western Cape, and soon it will be with the Eastern Cape to make one gigantic province, is the home of a great heat in our country. South Africa has a supportive legislative environment and experience in deployment of renewable energy, with the largest installed capacity of wind, solar power projects on the African continent. You just need to go to the Northern Cape and just see the whole area, most of it littered with a number of solar as well as wind energy generating projects. Companies like Sasol and Petro SA have expertise in the production of synthetic fuels like diesel, petrol and kerosene, as well as a range of chemical products. That is where capability and expertise resides. South Africa already produces 2.4 million tons of grey hydrogen for domestic consumption. Last year at the Sustainable Infrastructure Development Symposium, we began to profile the remarkable work that a number of large and emerging South African companies are doing in the green hydrogen sector. These include the Bogobai Port and Rail Project, which are fantastic projects that are going to create a number of jobs and attract billions of rands in investment. The project has been under development for over 2 decades and was gazetted as a strategic integrated project in 2020, what we call a SIP. Sasol and the Northern Cape Provincial Government have made significant progress on the master plan for a green hydrogen special economic zone, which aims to support 40 gigawatts of electrolyzer capacity by 2050. This would require approximately 80 gigawatts of renewable energy, which is almost double South Africa's current installed electricity generation capacity. Transnet has issued a request for proposals for the development of the port and rail project, which could see the port developed by 2028. Now, we've heard of the Priska Power Reserve project, and this is a wonderful project which I've heard talked about and have met some of the players. Now, this is being led by Mahlaku Apala, a black women-owned renewable energy developer, and they've made major progress over the last year. And I hope that they are here because they've been doing a great job. Now, this project has already moved ahead. It has received most of the required environmental approvals and its water use license, and has brought the Industrial Development Corporation as an equity partner. Now, another initiative is the development of the Hydrogen Valley that would link the 3 hydrogen hubs of Mogalakwena in Limpopo, Johannesburg, and Durban Richards Bay hub. And that is what Minister de Lille was talking about, linking all these 3 provinces. This initiative is being led by the Department of Science and Innovation and supported by Anglo-American, Bambili Energy, as well as Energy. 9 catalytic projects have been identified as part of this initiative, including the successful demonstration by Anglo-American in May 2022 of the world's first largest mine haul truck to run on hydrogen and fuel cells. And they got me to test drive this vehicle, and I did rather well I must say. The potential for South Africa to emerge as a significant player in the green hydrogen value is not only immense, it is gigantic. And it is why we have identified green energy sector as one of the key sectors that we are going to proceed with in our just energy transition. This is where a new sector beckons. It calls us to come in with investors or investments, and it is going to yield great results for our country. And we look forward to welcoming more of the firms in the green hydrogen value chain and associated technologies into our market. And I'm really delighted that a number of firms from various countries are represented here. And when we held our initial meeting last year, little did we know that there would be such great interest. And I've heard that just this summit, this conference has been oversubscribed. So many more people wanted to participate, which shows that there's great interest, but it is great interest that is moving towards investments and moving towards implementation. We hope to see a number of your companies partnering with South African firms as we increase our renewable energy footprint, green hydrogen manufacturing capability, and local production of value-added products in our country. Our country is not only determined, it aims to become a world leader in green hydrogen. This is our intention. And it's gone beyond being a dream. It is a reality that we are moving towards. Given all these projects that Minister de Lille was announcing and reading out, we are absolutely certain that we are going to be the leader in the green energy, in hydrogen sector. We are determined to make full use of our substantial endowments as a country to meet the challenges of climate change and to achieve a just transition that we want to see benefiting all our people. And as we say in our country, we want this just transition to leave no one behind. It needs to address the needs of workers. It needs to address the needs of communities that are affected. But more importantly, it also needs to lead to economic development. We must see sub-industries spawning in the areas where we are going to have these projects implemented. And in the end, we want to see these projects leading to job creation. Because you cannot, as Minister de Lille was saying, we've already got 300 billion rand committed, and it's going to keep rising and rising, and we cannot invest so much money without it having an impact on job creation. So we're looking forward to a future as part of our just energy transition, accompanied by the other things that we are doing as we implement our economic recovery and reconstruction plan. We're looking forward to more job creation. Just on the just energy transition itself, the green hydrogen beckons, the electric vehicles sector also beckons, and it beckons on some of the challenges that other countries are now having and the ambitions that they have. For instance, we were in the UK recently, and we were told that they are now going to ban the use of petrol and diesel in the next few years to come. We already export vehicles to them, and here an opportunity opens for us as we now, through our just energy transition, have decided that we are going to move into electric vehicles. A great opportunity, not only for one country, but for many other countries. Already, we are a major auto manufacturer in 3 of our provinces, in the Eastern Cape, in KZN, and in Gauteng. And all these provinces, through the workers, have developed great expertise in making high-quality vehicles that we export to many parts of the world and into our own continent as well. So a new flank of economic development is opening up for us. So some people fear this just energy transition, and I say, through this, we will be able to open up new sectors in our economy that are going to create many more jobs. And we are also going to be sending people to various parts of the world to go and see how they have managed their own transition from fossil fuels to renewables. And our plan is so robust that it will be able to enable us to move with a great deal of confidence, a great deal of investment attraction, and a great deal of ensuring that the skills that should underpin our move into all these areas are going to be developed, because young people will be brought in to be key participants in all this. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm really pleased to be here, and I wish you the best of deliberations. You are trailblazers, you are charting a new path for us, and I want you to be part of this journey as we move forward as South Africa. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Please may I ask Minister in the Presidency, Mondli Gungubele, to come onto the stage, and please may I ask the high-level panelists to make their way to the stage as well, who are taking part in our first high-level panel.
list of panelists, noble men and women, who will share with us the experiences of their various countries with regard to the role that we are playing in as far as ensuring that we are key players in the future green economy from the perspective of producing green hydrogen. My panel is as follows, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Till Mansman, Commissioner Innovation and Green Hydrogen, German Federal Minister of Education and Research. You see he nods. Paddy Padmanath, very leading in this area. He was quite braggy yesterday. CEO and Vice Chairman of AquaPower. Good morning, Paddy. Our lady from our country, who is Executive Vice President, Energy Business Sasol, Ms. Priscilla Mabelan. Presidential Economic Advisor and Green Hydrogen Commissioner, Namibian Presidency. I'm told he's got many names. If you like, you can call him Professor Ramahupa of Namibia, or you can give him any other name, or you call him Trudy Makanya. It seems to carry all those titles. Ms. James Newper. Thank you very much. Next is Rebecca Miano, Cabinet Secretary, Minister of East African Community, Arid Lands and Regional Development in Kenya, Ms. Rebecca Miano. Good morning, ma'am. Lastly, not least, First Under-Secretary of Ministry of Electricity and Renewable Energy, Egypt, Mr. Ahmed Mohamed Abdelhamid Muhida. Morning, sir. So we've got 1 hour, I'm advised, 15 minutes to actually have this conversation about the future of green hydrogen. And each speaker is going to be 3 minutes. And when I smile at you, you must know your 3 minutes is over. We will start with Mr. Manisman to share with us their experience. How are they walking this path with the globe in Germany? Mr. Manisman?
Yes, thank you very much. It's a great honor to be here on behalf of the federal German government in Berlin. I'm very impressed about what you're doing here in South Africa. It's my first, to be honest, it's my first trip as the new commissioner on green hydrogen in the Federal Ministry of Education and Research to a foreign country. I'm also a parliamentarian, so I'm a bit experienced in traveling to other countries, but this is my first trip in this position. And I'm very impressed because yesterday I had the occasion to visit the Sasol company, and I could see how much advanced you are in some fields of what we need together. I'm also in Parliament in the Committee of Economic Cooperation and Development, and I'm deeply convinced that we need a new kind of cooperation in the world to get the tasks, to get our goals, be all defined, latest in the COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh. Also, we had a lot of progress in the question of loss and damages, but we are all have the task to avoid more loss and damages in the world by decarbonization, or better to say by defossilization, the entire world. And this is, I think, new for humanity, for the mankind. This kind of cooperation we need now to get this goal, because mankind always get big progress in using new forms of energy. But this is the first time we not only want to have new energy, we want to stop another energy which is very dangerous in this amount of using it. So this fertilization is a really great task, and not one country alone, not one continent alone can achieve it to get out of this. And I'm very, very convinced that especially Europe and Africa should need to have new forms of cooperation in a very huge field. It's beginning, of course, with science and technology, because all what we need to do is new innovations in this kind of technology. We know how it works basically, but not in this scale. In this scale, we need it globally. And especially in this field, I think South Africa, the Sasol company has a lot of knowledge how to scale up the processes we need, and I'm quite convinced that South Africa will be one of the major players in the special field of aviation fuels. What we also need is a strong cooperation with economy, which means financing all these processes. It needs a lot of money, and it needs a lot of company economically organization. And of course, we need politics on every level. We need politics in the countries for itself, but also on the high level of cooperation, of diplomacy. And I wish, of course, I thoroughly listened to the speech of the president, of Mr. President. I wish more leaders in the world would have such a clear view on the future, on what is coming in the future. So thank you very much that I'm on this panel. Thank you very much for a warm welcome here to South Africa, and I'm looking forward to the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Till. You hold number one. You still have first class for time. Now, we're going to Paddy, where the Aker Power has the only gigawatt-scale green hydrogen project anywhere in the world. If you can, during these 3 minutes, share us your experience. Paddy.
Thank you. Good morning. Your Excellency, it's a privilege to be here with you. Look, actually, His Excellency Ramaphosa really set out the opportunity South Africa has to participate in the transformation of the world as we transition to a green economy. I want to just contextualize it first and foremost. We are very lucky in that we have the privilege, the company that I lead, we have already started in construction on first at-scale green hydrogen plant that's under construction in the world that will produce more green hydrogen when it's dispatching in 2025 last quarter or early 2026 first quarter, more green hydrogen than that is produced in the world today. So people then sort of turn around and ask me, is this hydrogen revolution real? Why has green hydrogen not been produced at scale in the past? And why do we dream that it's going to get done at scale in the future? Let's not forget, 100 million tons of green hydrogen, of gray hydrogen is consumed in the world today for a variety of industrial processes. And His Excellency pointed out, here in South Africa, you use about 13 million of that 100 million tons. So South Africa at one level is a hugely industrialized nation that is already using a lot of gray hydrogen. The first plant that we are in construction on at scale is to produce just 250,000 tons. So the opportunity just to convert the 100 million tons to green is massive ahead of us. To give it context, that first plant will consume 4 gigawatts of renewable energy, 4.2 gigawatts. So the whole of South Africa today has an installed capacity of 40 gigawatts. So this is a very large plant, but in the context of green hydrogen economy, a tiny plant, consuming 1/10 of the entire country's energy in the context of South Africa. So that's where we are starting. So the question is, why is it that we believe that this is real, this can be implemented? Very simple reason. Renewable energy costs led by technology, human innovation, entrepreneurship, have come down to such a ridiculously low level, mercifully low level, that we are really now able to believe in the green energy transition. In the context of Africa, for those who are privileged to have electricity, the true average cost of generating that electricity, true cost, not subsidized, not confused, but a true cost, was anything from 8 cents per kilowatt hour all the way to 45, 50 cents in countries like Nigeria, where they use very inefficient small diesel generators. We are able to dispatch reliable energy by blending solar and wind pretty much right across South Africa, southern part of Africa, with a bit of battery, which is becoming competitive for smaller use, to manage the frequency oscillations at anything from 3.5 cents to 6 cents. So a fraction, at least half or a third in the case of many countries, or even a fraction of the cost of power that is being generated. 60% of making green hydrogen, the cost of 60% of making green hydrogen is the energy cost. So as the renewable energy cost comes down, we are able to generate green hydrogen in a very cost-competitive basis. That is the value proposition, and this corridor, all the way to the Atlantic coast, has got fantastic solar.
That's wonderful.
This is the opportunity that you have.
Very much exciting. Well done, Petty. I know I've had supper with you. I know your energy. Sasol, ladies and gentlemen, has projects that are being developed both in brown and green fields. Is against that background, we would want to request Ms. Mabelane Priscilla from our country to take this 3 minutes and tell us what is Sasol known about in this space. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Given the disproportion of gender on the panel, hopefully you'll give us 5 minutes each just to balance the equation. His Excellencies, it's a pleasure and also an honor to be addressing everyone here. As Sasol, we are really privileged to be trusted by our government and our host country to lead the energy transition. We've set ourselves 2 imperatives. One is to anchor the local demand. The second part is to drive the green hydrogen hub facilitation to ensure South Africa is successful. To do that, we do recognize that with the challenges and opportunities that climate change is putting on the globe, there's a need for South African industries to respond. We very soon will be seeing carbon border adjustment taxes coming in, which will make some of our industries not competitive. So in responding, we've prioritized 3 clusters. First, the Val Triangle cluster, where we are partnering with ArcelorMittal to look at the production of green hydrogen and capturing unavoidable CO2 from their steel plant to revitalize the plant and produce green steel going forward. So that's one opportunity. In the same Val Triangle, we are looking at all of the industries around that. We have chemicals plants, we have mining plants. Some of those are already using our gray hydrogen. So that's the first part that we're going to revitalize going forward. In addition, in Sasolburg, to prove this case, we're going to be looking at 2 use cases. One is already in progress. We are going to produce green hydrogen next year, 60 megawatt, repurposing an existing electrolyzer. We've already ordered our Marais from Toyota in a partnership with IDC. They've arrived, and hopefully next year, His Excellency will be able to demonstrate to South African how do we handle and utilize green hydrogen on mobility. At the same time, we're working with mining companies to be able to utilize the green hydrogen we'll produce next year. After that, We have a reactor that we are using for testing, and we're going to repurpose that reactor to produce sustainable aviation fuel. It is our belief and aspiration that we can make OR Tambo a sustainable aviation hub for the globe going forward, and we want to lead in terms of that. So in summary, the Val Triangle can take up to 5 megawatts of electrolyzer and renewables production over time, and it's our intention to ensure that the 500 ammonia and methanol that we are producing today, 500,000 tons, can be repurposed to green products. Secondly, before I get into trouble, we're looking at Secunda, where we are repurposing a 400 megawatt to be able to produce sustainable aviation fuel. And that's also an exciting opportunity that we are targeting the H2 Global platform. And then the last cluster is Saldanha, where yesterday was launched again. And there we're also looking at green ammonia, as well as green hydrogen for steel, fertilizers, and shipping. We are the tip of the continent. It gives us a huge opportunity for shipping opportunities as well. And lastly, His Excellency, the Catalytic project, which is going to produce at scale green hydrogen in the Northern Cape. We're really honored to lead that particular project. And we believe with this integrated opportunity of both local demand as well as export opportunities, it does position South Africa's capabilities and position us well to succeed into the future.
Thank you, Priscilla. Give her a big hand. Because of your grievance in your opening remarks, I was reluctant to say stop. But thank you for the wonderful presentation, Priscilla. In terms of our record, ladies and gentlemen, one of the countries that has demonstrated its ability to market its potential to produce green hydrogen is Namibia. It is against, again, that background that we have a lot of interest that what they have been doing recently, if they can do in 3 minutes with us here. James?
Thank you so much, Minister, and Your Excellency, thanks for welcoming us. I really bring greetings from your counterpart, President Hage G. Geingob. There are a lot of figures that are being articulated on the stage today, so I'll take more of a narrative. I think one of my key roles here today is to really play emissary and to say that we welcome the opportunity to work with South Africa to really contribute to energy security. I know that a lot of us are talking about hydrogen and its ability to help with industrialization and to decarbonize hard-to-abate sectors, but let us not forget that between Namibia and South Africa, we're not currently energy secure. A year ago, so it was on the 7th of October, I know that in June 2021, His Excellency had an iPad gate story. And by the time I met His Excellency, I had my own iPad gate story because it was during the Troika summit. And the president pulled me aside and said, come and tell Cyril what we're doing in Namibia so that we can work with South Africa. There's a bit of a surprise, so I pulled up my iPad. My iPad was significantly cracked. In fact, it was falling apart because my son had a session with the iPad. Nonetheless, I spent some time trying to take your president through the plans that we had in Namibia and how we could collaborate with South Africa. So I'm really here to say that we had already envisioned South Africa as a partner in this space a year ago. And in fact, when we did issue our RFP, a lot of your companies, including Sasol, Enetrag, I see is in the audience as well, all responded and we welcome them. And as we speak, we are developing an $11 billion 300,000 tons of hydrogen, 2.1 million tons of ammonia project with South Africans. We have envisioned a corridor already last year where in our country we're looking to build a 400-kilometer pipeline to evacuate these molecules, yes, to Europe, and I can see our EAB colleagues are here. They've been supporting us on the journey, but we've envisioned a 2,500-kilometer pipeline from Lüderitz all the way to Saldanha with a T-junction all the way to Secunda as well. And this pipeline project you know, I mean, if you look at the potential cost, it's 20 billion euros. So I can see my smile. My invitation is the following, from my president, from my cabinet: we cannot do projects like that alone. And they're not impossible. Europe is envisioning a 53,000 kilometer green hydrogen backbone. 2,500 between us should be possible. Thanks a lot for having me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, James. You can see what you have done by the response to this powerful applause, James. But ladies and gentlemen, one of the most interesting things I've just come across is that not less than 90% of its electricity is produced from the following sources: hydropower, geothermal, solar and wind, as well as biomass. 90% of its electricity. That's Kenya. Rebecca, can you confirm or reject that story? In 3 minutes.
Thank you very much. I bring greetings from the people of Kenya and Your Excellency from your counterparts. Glad to be here just after your very successful visit to our country. And yes, I want to confirm Kenya has made great strides in renewable energy. We have 90% of the electricity consumed in the country from renewable sources, about 45% from geothermal, and another about 38% from hydro. We have wind and solar, and now we are sorting out the remaining 10%, hoping to be 100% renewable by the year 2030. We have also made very big strides in unlocking the potential of green hydrogen through coordinated action. And in Kenya, we believe that a learning by doing approach is the best so that you can get rapid implementation. We have strategies in place. And the reason I am here is to hear the South Africa story, to learn from your experience, to seek collaboration and partnership, probably not walk in your steps, but walk besides each other so that as Africa, we can unleash the huge potential. We know we have tremendous potential to produce the low carbon hydrogen. We have an opportunity to leverage the very huge solar potential, the wind, the geothermal and hydro resources, as to pivot to shift from a continent rich in resources, but to one that has developed its resources and therefore becomes rich and wealthy. And so I look forward to a very successful interaction, and for sure, I will take the lessons learned so that together we can decarbonize this continent. Thank you. I give it back to you before you smile.
Thanks, Ms. Miano. It demonstrates that 90% of your electricity comes from renewals. You are ahead. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the interesting stories is that the first green hydrogen demonstrator plant in the African continent has just been inaugurated in Egypt. It will be nice to hear Mr. Mohida Adelmi Mohammed Ahmed. The platform is yours, sir.
Thank you, Excellency. Mr. President, good morning. I would like to extend the greetings and appreciations of Egyptian people and the Egyptian government for your excellence and South African people. I am very happy to be here today to exchange views and experiences with Egypt in the field of renewable energy and green energy and renewable hydrogen. I would like here to remind ourselves that there's many projects now studying and under preparing. One of them to interconnect Egypt with the many African countries, especially with South Africa under the umbrella of Green Energy Corridor in cooperation with IRENA, and also to establish and to launch the highway road connecting Cairo with Cape Town under the umbrella of African Union Commission. And also we will use this highway road to interconnect electrically with many of African countries under the BIDA project under the provision of African Union Commission. So there is many opportunities for cooperation between all African countries, especially Egypt and South Africa, which represents a large, huge of capacities from electricity in the two countries. In Egypt, we have a very ambitious strategy. When we started our energy transition 7 or 8 years ago, we set a very ambitious strategy to achieve around 42% from renewable energy in our energy mix by 2035. This year, we already achieved the medium-term target of our strategy when we reached 20% from for the energy mix from the renewable energy from the peak load, and we are working to achieve our targets by 2035. Also, I would like to mention that we are working to update our strategy to extend the time to be 2040, and also to involve all changes in the international market, depending on the green hydrogen, depending on the development of energy storage, depending on the electric vehicles, and also we decided to exclude the coal power plants from our strategy and replace it by renewable energy. So I think there is many opportunities because Africa continent is very rich in renewable energy resources. Although that there is many challenges facing African continent, let me say that around more than 500 million people in sub-Saharan Africa don't have access to electricity. Also, more than 700 African people in sub-Sahara don't have access to clean cooking. So we need to work together. We need to synergize all initiatives, all efforts in the African continent to face the challenges and to achieve the targets and the goals of our continent, and also to achieve the goals of Paris Agreement in the field of climate change. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's give him a big hand. If I want to go back to Mr. Manisman, you will agree with me that different countries, to realize their potential for green hydrogen production and meet particular targets, certain technological breakthrough needs to be realized. Do you want to share something with us there from the German experience?
Pardon me, I didn't get that.
What are the technological breakthroughs required to achieve the significant targets and potential for green hydrogen production by different countries? If you can share your experience in Germany with us.
Yes, we need a lot of technological progress in nearly every field. We basically know how everything works. We know how solar panels work, and wind engines, and all this stuff, and fuel cells and this. But what we don't know is how this works in a much bigger scale. And much bigger scale means not only 1,000-fold, it means million-fold sometimes. Three now, or six, yeah? 6 times more. How to pursue this? This is a big task for technology, for science, and for economy. But what we also know is that renewable energy in the world is very sufficiently, and especially Africa is privileged by the nature of having a lot of natural sources, also concerning the treasures in the soil. A lot of things the world needs for this progress is here, but hydrogen will be the solution for a lot of problems in this field, because hydrogen is able to transport and to store energy. And that is important for every single country. You need that in your country, but we need it all over the world because we want to replace the big fossil energy market by a green hydrogen market. Not only concerning the hydrogen, but also concerning the derivatives, including the carbon molecules in methanol, methane, ammonium, etc. And for that, we need a lot of technology progress.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mansman. To Paddy, if there are any spillover opportunities from the developments of the gigawatts scale green hydrogen projects, if there are any, what are these and how can they be captured? Any spillovers?
No, look, thank you very much. Just a quick answer to it is very much making sure that you have the enabling environment. I mean, take the first project that we are developing in Saudi Arabia. The foundation is cost-competitive renewable energy. So focus needs to be on creating the enabling environment to generate cost-competitive renewable energy. South Africa has demonstrated a fantastic renewable energy development program. Already 6,000 plus megawatts is in the system, procured through multiple rounds, and has delivered that energy at such a competitive rate. We are participating, we have assets in this country, we are very comfortable. We very much like to continue to increase our investments into the green hydrogen space. And we see the opportunity, and we have already started to work at the Bekobai site to looking at replicating the plant that we are developing in Saudi Arabia, just the same block, 240,000 tons per annum sort of level at scale. And part of it, we must focus at using it for industrialization, valorization in country, and potentially part of it for monetizing through exports. So the enabling environment, fast tracking, as you have started to do now, the permitting and approvals process, will all accelerate the deployment. There is no fundamental technological sort of gap that needs to be filled. And I know people will get annoyed by me saying this, but I'm going to say it. Money is in abundance. It just needs the right projects and the right enabling framework. South Africa is a very safe, proven investment destination. You have lots of domestic funds. You have already shown the ability to attract massive amount of international investments through that first wave of procurement on renewable energy that was done impeccably. Just need to repeat that. And you should have no problem attracting the trillions that is needed in order to invest in green hydrogen.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Paddy. If we go to James, the globetrotter, promoting Namibia's potential. We're curious to know if you can share with us whether African countries are competing for a limited resource. If so or not so, what are the opportunities for regional and continental collaboration? For instance, as you know, we have Africa Green Hydrogen Alliance. Somebody can say, no, I don't want to be part of this, I want to compete. Alliance can say, we need to collaborate. Can you share with us, probably, are these two contesting? Are they conflictual? Thank you.
Thank you so much. that's not how we view it. We think that as neighbors, we have unique characteristics. South Africa has a much larger, much deeper industrial base. Namibia is the second least populated country in the world, so we have a little bit more space. Earlier in the week, I was comparing Netherlands to Germany and saying Namibia and South Africa might very well end up having a very similar relationship. You cannot fully decarbonize Germany without relying on the supply chain that the Dutch can provide with a very strategic asset such as the Port of Rotterdam. And, you know, I mean, sometimes imitation is the best form of flattery. So I look at the EU and I see how, of course, they're all different countries, but they're working very strategically together, using their various assets to achieve a common goal. So when I look at the relationship that already exists between our two leaders through SADC, but of course through the AU as well, that's what I see. I see an opportunity to collaborate and to integrate. And I do see that in doing so, you actually end up reducing the cost of your product, whether that's the levelized cost of hydrogen, the levelized cost of ammonia, or indeed the levelized cost of electricity. Because as we speak today, we are importing 60 to 70% of our electricity from South Africa, who a quarter of the time in the year are load shedding. Yeah, so clearly the opportunity, right? The opportunity.
Thank you very much.
The opportunity is to identify the common enemy.
Well done, James.
Yeah,
Thank
the
you.
common enemy is energy security, and we
Right.
think we can trade electrons.
Lovely. Thank you, James. Ms. Mabelane, you've been, just like James, trying to tell the world how you guys in Sasol are in this game together with your country. The curiosity we have is, how far have you succeeded to place South Africa as a stakeholder in this journey? Probably if there are gaps for improvement. Thanks.
Thanks. I just want to go back to the issue of collaboration. 2 decades ago, South Africa and Mozambique collaborated to get gas into the country. We managed to develop an area that was undeveloped, now is industrialized. We have a pipeline between the 2 countries running into South Africa for security of supply. So South Africa can demonstrate we've done this and we know how to do it. And that's the credibility that gives our global partners the opportunities that you're looking at. In terms of our focus jointly with the presidency and other ministries, it's been really around our potential and our competitiveness. The presidency and our honorable minister have covered that comprehensively in terms of their endowments, but equally so our capabilities, including our minerals. On the other hand, when you look at where are we going in terms of this, we do believe that our trade partnerships with countries such as Germany, but also EU, are extremely encouraging. The time we're spending with EU in terms of their decarbonization and diversification strategies at the back of the geopolitics are giving South Africa and the region a huge opportunity to pivot and be able to support them to sort out their own energy security requirements going forward. And we are encouraged with the policies and the procedures that they put in place. However, we believe that a better collaboration and a framework that captures and enables these 2 geographies to be able to accelerate the development of the green hydrogen economy will be quite critical. So I'm encouraged to see the minister here from Germany, and I think that's going to be very important as we move forward. At the same time, we have partnership with Japan, as well as exploring other partnerships in Asia. When you look at South Korea and Japan, they've articulated their demands for green ammonia up to 2030. So in the next 10 decades, we had good trade partnerships with those countries. How we leverage on that and create more offtakes, including collaborations on science and technology. We need technologies such as carbon capture to become much more competitive, and also direct air capture to become more competitive. So those are the things I wanted to highlight, Minister. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor. We're about to wrap up, ladies and gentlemen, but it would be unfair not to ask Ms. Miano to share with us how are they going to leverage the fact that they produce 90% of their electricity from renewable energy. How do they leverage that to produce green hydrogen?
Thank you very much. The cost of green hydrogen production is the most significant challenge, and it's actually determined by two components: the electrolyzer capex and electricity cost. And so with huge amounts of renewable energy that is significantly lower than the thermal that is generated using fossil fuels, we see a huge opportunity to leverage on that electricity cost to develop the hydrogen. And also in terms of capacity, in terms of experience, we do believe that we have that, which we are going to leverage in production of hydrogen. Thank you.
Thank you very much. In a minute, Mohammed, you've signed a lot of framework agreements.
What?
Framework agreements. Egypt has signed a lot of framework agreements during COP 2017. In a minute, how are they assisting your journey to produce, to participate in the green hydrogen production?
Let me say that when Egypt decided to enter the market of green hydrogen, we already move in two parallel paths. First one to launch the national strategy for green hydrogen. Our strategy is very ambitious to share with 8% from the hydrogen market by 2040. With capacity of 10 million ton by 2040. And in the same time, we already moved to implement some of pilot projects. So we signed 16 MOUs with a very big international developers to implement pilot projects. For the pilot phase, the capacity around 5.6 gigawatt as electrolyzers and 12 gigawatt as renewable energy. And also we succeeded in COP27 this month to sign nine framework agreements with 9 developers from the 16 MOUs, with investment around $83 billion as a potential of investment, but we will give the opportunity for the developers to make financial closure and make some measurements on the land to see how we can proceed in this project.
Thank you, Mohammed. Thank you very much. If you can give me a big hand. And also a big hand for the entire panel. I'm sure now, no doubt, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. President, Premier Windy, Premier Saul, Minister Dilili, you've heard for yourselves that Africa is at work, not only through intra-Africa collaboration, it's also collaborating with the bigger world. Thank you very much for the opportunity, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
All right, we are running slightly ahead of schedule, which is good when we're speaking about the future and efficiency. Please may I ask the facilitator of our second panel, Lukhona Mguni, to make his way to the stage, and his panelists too. They'll be showcasing the future catalytic green hydrogen initiatives.
Cabinet. Good morning to different premiers of provinces who are now going to be changing province 6 months premiership sharing. In order to save time, I have been informed. No, you can just take a seat. Don't worry. Okay. Just take a seat. I'm going to introduce our panel so that we save time. I'm told that by 2 minutes to 12, we will have to be done. So we're going to have 2 minutes each, rather than 3 minutes. At least Minister Gungubele has helped me, Madiba. Thank you for indicating that a smile today is a weapon to keep people quiet. So I will carry on with the smile. In the panel this morning, we've got Jonathan Dibask, who is Managing Director for Thermal Desalination and Battery Storage and Hydrogen at NG Group, NG without the N. And Madam Hlari, who is Co-Founder and Executive Director at Mahlagu Apahla Group. Thank you very much for joining us. Our host, Professor Josienzo Ramakgopa, Head of Investment and Infrastructure, South Africa in the Office of the President. But I think today you are our host, and thank you very much for hosting us. There are 2 other panelists. I'm not sure if they might be in the room. We can carry on. Okay. All right. Let us do that. Then we are going to have more time indeed. And I think because there's 3 of us, we've got about a few minutes to go. We've got about 25 minutes to go. So I'll start off with you, Jonathan, just to give us your opening remarks. I mean, the panel this morning is titled, I was actually laughing, it's Catalytic, showcasing the future. And hydrogen, of course, I was taught in science that it is a catalyst. And it's so interesting with this, renewables and low carbon economies and decarbonization, how much of chemistry that one would have encountered in school. I'm going to talk to you, Meta, about ammonia and, how the green ammonia might be smelling different to the ammonia that I know from my days when I used to do experiments at the chemistry lab and all of that. But really, I think more than just the economy of it, it's probably also about the knowledge that's going to be important to be able to showcase this future, to be able to show that, this green hydrogen is going to, be the next, someone called it a revolution. But I really think as you make your inputs today, I would love to hear how you make connections from knowledge production, knowledge dissemination, knowledge updating, more than just only focusing on investments and the economy of it all. Jonathan, your opening remarks, please.
Look, interesting question indeed. I think knowledge is also a sum of experience. Huh? We've been hearing a lot of different experience about hydrogen. We've been hearing about Kenya, about Egypt, about South Africa. I think we are learning a lot to know, with different players to see how they are engaging with the green hydrogen. It's a bit new for everyone. even if this molecule is maybe one of the oldest one. So we've been learning a lot on what is doing Kenya. I think it's interesting to see how much they have in terms of renewable capacity. I think South Africa is taking an interesting road now, where we want to grow this economy, this hydrogen economy, and eventually we can also use what has been done in other geography to know what we should do in South Africa. Should I keep going? Or?
Well, I'm going to come back to you and I'll ask you a question. Meta, I'm going to come to you. There are people who conspicuously, you just know that they are not from the hydrogen sphere. I mean, a chartered accountant by training. But I mean, your opening remarks, I mean, you're doing some fantastic things, you know, with your project, green ammonia, and, you know, ambitious targets in terms of numbers, in terms of where you want to be by 2026. Just give us some of your opening remarks and really things that you are excited about.
No, I must say I'm really, really honored. I was mentioned so many times, twice, by my favorite minister, Minister Patricia de Lille, who I work with very closely, and by the president. I guess I'm representing the Priska Power Reserve and also Mahlakwa Phahla Energy Fund, which is a 2.5 billion rand fund that is owned and managed by women. Like Paddy said, South Africa does not lack capital. We just need to work together in terms of how we focus our energies and how we make sure that we contribute equally. Like you said, I'm a chartered accountant by profession, and the energy sphere, somehow, people used to think that it's safe somehow for somebody who did chemistry somewhere, physics somewhere. But then knowledge is power and education is power. And that's why as we go along, we need to be skilling one another. And as a chartered accountant, we also created what we call the Black Energy Professionals Association to make sure that as we are developing these industries like hydrogen, that people are aware of what goes into it. As a lot of people tend to think that hydrogen is a complicated stuff. Obviously, it is very capital intensive. And like I said, in one of my panels, a lot of people just don't know and they don't understand why you need water and what is the molecule H2. And people forget that, you know, the water that we drink every day, it's actually the H20, and all this stuff that people are talking about, electrolyzers, air separators, NH3, we all just basically taking water, taking out the H2 and having the oxygen. And then from there, we use an air separator so that you can have nitrogen that is abundant in the air and you have the NH3, okay?
That is...
That's ammonia.
That is beautiful. And thank you for breaking it down. And maybe we do need to find, you know, Dr. Ramakgopa, a language that connects with people, that, you know, makes it easy for people to understand. Like you're saying, I mean, in school, generally, if you look at the number of people who do chemistry, eventually into university, that population is small. But how do we communicate it in such a sexy language as, you know, you have, Meta? But Prof. Ramakgopa, I mean, you've got other issues to deal with, you know, striking the partnerships, making sure that, you know, you've got bilateral, multilateral. There seems to be an agreement in the room this morning that there has to be much more greater cooperation going forward if we are going to get this green hydrogen correct, and of course the entire ecosystem of renewable energies. Just your opening remarks this morning.
Yes, good morning, Lucon, and good morning to Excellency ministers and premiers present here and DMs. And let me greet you all in your eminence. Yes, I think we have made an admission that I think the state will not succeed on its own. And also I think if you look at the National Development Plan, which is our overarching framework for development in our country, which was put in place or adopted in 2012, it does make that admission that from the point of view of gross fixed capital formation, that is the total amount of investments made in the South African economy, that should constitute about 30% of GDP to enable us to achieve the aspirational targets as set out for 2030. But I think what is important there is that the makeup of the 30% of GDP is such that a third of that should be public sector and 2/3 of that should be private sector. So essentially the state is seen as its contribution or its role as a crowding effect for private sector participation. I mean, if you were to listen carefully to the presentation made by Minister DeLille, you'll see that all those projects that are being gazetted essentially are being fast-tracked towards financial close, private sector-led. So what the state needs to do is just to create enabling conditions for private sector investment. Of course, the state is not just a spectator, so the state takes the lead in terms of determining the location of those investments, the velocity of the investment, and the content of that investment. And I think that the stewardship of both Premier Wind and Zamani Sol in developing, if you like, a green hydrogen corridor is particularly telling. I think it communicates the point that provincial boundaries are nothing but administrative and political boundaries. But I think there's a whole lot more that can be achieved at the subnational level out of collaboration and cooperation. So I'm just saying that it's just emblematic of what the sixth administration is seeking to do, to say that let's look at private sector to come into the fray so that we're able to accelerate, if you like, the rejuvenation of the South African economy and its qualitative transformation. And yes, I think these are living examples of what we are doing. We're investing a lot of money in relative terms to ensure that we contribute towards the project preparation. The IDC yesterday entered into an agreement to support the project for purposes of project preparation. It's a grant component for project preparation. And yes, so the state is interested and the state is taking the lead, and private sector is coming along.
Thank you so much, Prof. Ramokgopa. And let me welcome Famida Smith. Good morning, and welcome to our panel. Famida Smith is Principal Market Development at Anglo-American Platinum. So we used to talk about, the Platinum Belt, the Platinum Valley. Now we're getting into hydrogen valleys and these new exciting things, but it seems like platinum is indispensable still, even in that future, and you've got a massive interest in terms of, the new space of green hydrogen, what it can mean for your own operations, how you operate some of your equipment, how you operate some, of your sites, and how you can make, interlinking investments between hydrogen and platinum. Of course, hydrogen catalyzing platinum at times. So your opening remarks, please.
Morning, Your Excellency, Honorable Ministers, guests. So our Platinum Group metals play a strategic role all across the hydrogen value chain. It's important all the way from hydrogen production to hydrogen storage. So hydrogen production through electrolyzers and PEM electrolyzers in particular. From a hydrogen storage perspective, technologies like liquid organic hydrogen carriers allow us, it uses catalysts that allow us to store the hydrogen in a safe manner and to transport it in a safe manner, and then end use of green hydrogen through hydrogen fuel cells. Our PGMs play a strategic role in that. And because of that, as an organization, we as Anglo-American Platinum have been active in the hydrogen economy, both globally and locally, for the better part of 15 years. But the second opportunity that we see is the use of green hydrogen and subsequently our PGMs again in decarbonizing our own operations. And to this effect, we have successfully launched the world's largest green hydrogen haul truck at our mine in Mogalakwena in May this year. So we see hydrogen from basically those two areas, but I think a third area, and I'm sure we'll get to the discussion around the Hydrogen Valley, is how through our initiatives we allow for a just energy transition and that we leave no one behind in this transition. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Famida. I mean, and that is the biggest rallying cry, that, nobody should be left behind. And talking about showcasing what, green hydrogen can do, in September I was in London, and I saw hydrogen-powered buses, and I thought, wow, this is quite exciting in terms of how far things have come. I mean, 5 years ago, that was not even the case for London itself. So, I mean, Jonathan, let's come back to you. I mean, NG is developing a number of green hydrogen projects across the world, you know. Are there any differences that you are picking up in terms of regions? And you know, are different regions behaving differently in their approach to green hydrogen? And what are the interventions that government should be leading going forward, particularly now that we've heard a lot about South Africa and Namibia and potential, you know, for collaboration. What would be the things that governments need to put in place to make sure interventions are successful?
Okay, so maybe I'll start with NG quickly just to share a bit why let's say our experience is relevant. So NG is a 100,000 people company, 100 gigawatts around the world, 35 gigawatts of renewable, growing, obviously. In South Africa, we are the biggest IPP with 1.5 gigawatts installed. And in hydrogen specifically, we have 200 professionals working on it with 30 large-scale projects, and 2 of them with our partner Anglo, who's here. The hydrogen plant in Mogalakwena and the Hydrogen Valley as well. So maybe one thing that is actually coming back all the time is the partnership. It's really critical for that. And over our experience in the different geography we're working in, it's quite important to choose well your partners, depending on the project you want to do, what is the value chain you want to crack, let's say, you want to work on, what is the country you're working as well in, and local, global partner, it's actually quite key. And just if I can give an example, typically in France, we're working with Air Liquide, Total, Michelin. In the Netherlands, we're working with OCI, with Alstom. In Oman, we're working with POSCO. So depending on the geography and the business, then eventually you choose the relevant partner. Maybe the second point is in other geography, but I've seen that in the Western Cape as well yesterday, actually. We're trying to develop the hydrogen project around existing infrastructure. Typically in Abu Dhabi, we're working to feed an existing fertilizer plant with green hydrogen with Mazda. And in Australia, we're working on the same thing to feed part of an ammonia plant with green hydrogen. And I was thinking about what we saw yesterday with trying to reuse the the plant of ArcelorMittal, which is, I think, a very good way, let's say, to unlock and to start with an anchor client. So that's very interesting there. And interestingly as well, and I think it's adapted to the Northern Cape, Western Cape discussion, is we've been discussing a lot about production of hydrogen, but the transport is very important as well. It's critical in terms of health and safety, in terms of competitiveness. This is really key. And hence, just doing a parallel with what doing Egypt today, the wind is actually on a corridor which is not close to the consumption center, where is the Suez Canal. So at the moment, the Egyptian government is trying to find a way to will the electricity that is generated where it is the most competitive, where there is most wind.
But I'm going to then say that one thing that can make these partnerships succeed, what would it be?
The partnership, I think it's just really adapted depending on the project. If it's everyone is bringing a value to the project.
Yeah, okay.
If it's complementary.
Fantastic. Complementary, bringing value to the project and knowing exactly what role you have to play. As you said, Meta, I mean, the Priska Power Reserve project, a lot has been said about it, not only today, the Sustainable Infrastructure Development Symposium. This is almost like planting a tree, right? You don't get the fruits tomorrow after you've planted the tree. There are many stages that you have to go through: pre-feasibility, bankable project, finally, and then you feel you are on the runway to good business. What would you say in the last 12 months, but also projecting in the next 12 months, are the things that have been challenges and opportunities for you with the project, but also the things that you probably are saying should be a point of focus to unlock greater speed for the realization of the project?
Thank you very much. I think a lot was said by the Honorable Minister, and thank you so much. But then, I mean, we've made great strides. I mean, we've onboarded the IDC since the last symposium. We've also partnered with great companies from a technological point of view. We onboarded Tyson Group, who's currently doing our FEL studies, and we've also have Siemens Energy, who's helping us with the grid stability studies. As you know, South Africa is grid challenged, and the Northern Cape, as much as it has lots of sun and lots of wind in one place, there is unfortunately no grid. But then green hydrogen is actually a solution to that. So from a project perspective, we have to create our own internal grid, which is supposed to sustain ourselves. So we are busy with those studies currently. And obviously, the biggest challenge is in the next 12 months, us reaching financial close. I do not think that capital is a problem, but then the challenge is when you're looking at the world and the way the war in Ukraine has affected everything that is happening. You are currently facing supply chain problems in the market. So we've decided, obviously, as we want to keep the project as South African as possible, but then we've also decided so that we must also partner with a strategic equity partner who can also open up those world markets. But then in terms of South Africa, as we are growing, when we are looking at the kind of supply chain problems that the world is facing, we need to start thinking about how do we create self-reliance. And I know sometimes we might be thinking production of an electrolyzer or other products in South Africa might not be possible. But then those are the kind of things that we need to be thinking about. The fact that after the renewable energy program, South Africa is still importing solar panels, that we're still importing wind turbines. And currently, because we're not such a huge consumer, we are having now a problem in terms of who's going to be prioritizing us on their supply chain. So when we are deciding on all of this, Mr. President, and people must not tell you that it's going to be creating expensive power, it is very important to be self-reliant and self-sustainable. And especially when you take into account the jobs that we don't have, the skills that we don't have. So as Priska Power Reserve, one of the great things that we are doing, and I know from the communities, people think projects are just talk, but then it's looking forward and how we partner. I know Premier Sol and his team are very active on the ground. How are we making sure that along with the Department of Higher Education, we are preparing that by the time the projects are ready, we also have developed the requisite skills that are going to be able to take over. So for us, getting and reaching that financial close, and thirdly, and another one is looking from a market perspective. I think one of the panelists said, you know, South Africa is a net importer of ammonia as a product, and also when you look at the fact that 80% of the world's manganese is sitting in South Africa, and it's actually sitting in the Kalahari, it's in the Northern Cape. You have all of that, and how are we working together with Transnet and all of the different players so that you can be creating in the future those pipelines and everything else. But then in the near term, how are we partnering with the likes of the Sasol in terms of making sure that we are ramping up local consumption of green ammonia?
I'm just looking at the time and making sure that we stay within. It seems as if, you know, Prof. Ramakgopa, the rubber is now hitting the tarmac, you know, since the adoption of the National Infrastructure Plan as far back as 2012. You've had the special integrated, you know, projects, strategic integrated projects that were announced, but it seems now things are really coming together, and you've got a number of green hydrogen, you know, projects in the pipeline that you have supported, that have come on board. How are you, and you spoke earlier about, you know, the state playing a role, whether it's a third versus two-thirds by the private sector, but what are you doing in your office to help these projects move from, you know, pre-feasibility to implementation, and of course, that famous term, cutting the red tape?
Well, I guess that part of the reason why we have accumulated so much interest, I mean, the interest is exponential from some of the credible market players in the world. I mean, the financing fraternities here, some of the major technology players are in the room. It's precisely because the state has been taking the lead, and the policy instrument is such that it has made it possible for these projects to advance to where they are. Minister Delil invoked earlier on the provision of the Infrastructure Development Act, which essentially provides sharp instruments that enables us to accelerate these projects. And a lot of people in the room have benefited from those policy instruments. And in fact, we have privileged these projects because that's what it is. We privilege them, they jump the queue, and we are able to accelerate them. And then the private sector has the confidence to continue to inject money. I mean, a lot of it is for project development, so essentially it's at risk, but I think the state is playing its role. What we're doing now, so with the stewardship of Minister Delil and Gungubele, is that there's additional funds that they are allocating to the office. There's a reprioritization at the level of DPWNI. So it's not necessarily new money because the fiscal matrix is deteriorated. There are other competing needs. So essentially it's to reprioritize in the department and redirect the significant resources to the team to help us to support these projects to accelerate. So we also are putting the skin in the game to make sure that we accelerate these projects, because we do admit that they contribute to some of the standard objectives of macroeconomic policy in the country, the issues of job creation, addressing poverty, hunger, and famine, addressing issues of inequality. So I think when we look at this project, they must not be delinked from the sovereign strategic goals, although the conversation is about energy, but it's within, like a bigger calculus of trying to ensure that the economy develops. As the president makes the point, no one is left behind. So universal access is important, job creation, new skills, and growing the economy that is inclusive. That's how we see it, and like I said, putting the skin in the game. We've got the most exceptionally talented team of people in the office. Young, 70% women, master's degrees and upwards, average age about 29 years. I'm an outlier there, and Dr. G. And I'm very young, by the way, but I'm an outlier. What is the point I'm trying to illustrate is that it's young people who are coming out with these brilliant ideas. And contrary to the popular narrative, there are pockets of efficiency and excellence in the state. And infrastructure and many other bodies are in fact emblematic of what is possible. So as the president says, build state capacity, he says strengthen. So it doesn't mean it's absent, but it's not at levels that are desired. And that's what we are doing.
Well, thank you, Prof. Ramokhuba, and for that confidence. And of course, for that confidence in young people, I'm sure those who are young professionals are saying, yes, yes, Prof. We are the future of, catalyzing innovation and bringing about fresh ideas, but also not being, restive when change has to happen. Famida, let's finish off by that. You did say you would want to talk a bit about the Hydrogen Valley project, which has about 9 component parts. Anglo-American, of course, leading about 4 of those 9 component parts. Just a quick snapshot. What is the Hydrogen Valley? And of course, what are some of the successes that you've noted thus far? But what are your ambitious targets?
Sure. So the Hydrogen Valley extends 837 kilometers from Limpopo through Gauteng into KwaZulu-Natal. It was an initiative led by the Department of Science and Innovation, supported by ourselves, Anglo-American, as well as our partners, Bambili Energy and Anji, who are present here. The project really identifies and I think it's really helped us to map out a blueprint for the art of the possible when it comes to hydrogen in the country. So it's identified 9 catalytic projects, of which we as Anglo-American are leading activities in 4. The first one is around hydrogen for mine haul trucks. I've mentioned that we have successfully launched the first mine haul truck in the world running on green hydrogen and fuel cells here in South Africa. So I think great achievements on, before I get into the projects, great achievements on the Hydrogen Valley is the registration by ISA as a SIP project. So thank you to the ISA department. I think it's a great achievement for us, and what we look forward to in the next few months is having it officially gazetted. When it comes to mining haul trucks, in terms of our achievements thus far, we continue with performance testing on the vehicle. It continues to show great performance. We've taken the vehicle into the mine pit, moving the mine material, which is really significant. What we look forward to is the rollout of these across our operations. So we have 40 of these vehicles in Mogalakwena. The idea is to roll it out across all 40. And as an organization, we want to roll these vehicles out across our operations, and this means 400 of these trucks across our operations. So this, I think, is what we have to look forward to.
Yeah.
The second and third projects are actually combined under Project Rainbow, which we are leading, once again with Angie, Bambili Energy, and I'm proud to announce we have Sasol and Total Energies that have now joined the consortium. And these projects look at hydrogen for use in logistic trucks, so the trucks that run on our roads, the solid vehicles as well as the articulated vehicles, and then buses.
30 seconds, let's wrap up. You can see my colleague Zinga is not smiling at me. She's creeping up on me.
Okay, sorry. What we look forward to is really getting buses and trucks by 2024, early 2025 on the road. And then the fourth opportunity is hydrogen and fuel cell technologies within stationary applications. So really looking forward to that. That project is still in pre-feasibility stage. Next phases is getting it to feasibility and then demonstration.
I think that's a very good way to leave it on showcasing the future. Nzinga has stopped smiling, and she means business. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. A round of applause for our panel showcasing the future.
Just a few announcements before we have an early break for lunch. Please can you download the event app so you can know which session sits in which venue. This hall that we're in now is going to be split into two. It's going to be Hall A and Hall C. The other breakaway rooms are going to be upstairs after lunch. The VIP lounge is open to our VIP guests. If you've got a gold tag or gold sticker on your tag, then you know you're a VIP guest. If not, you're going to be with the rest of us here and in the lunch venue. Please remember that the hashtags for today are hashtag SA Green H2 Summit and hashtag Infrastructure SA. Please may I ask that we make our way back into this room at 1:45, where we're going to begin the rest of the program, and we're going to be keeping time as we have now. Thanks so much for your time and your attention. Good morning.